everyone, so today I'm going to be making a dish with handmade noodles and a tomato egg sauce. So there are two parts in this recipe. One is for the handmade noodles, and that you're going to need 3 cups of plain flour, all-purpose flour, a cup of water, plus maybe 1 or 2 teaspoons of water just in case it gets too dry. And then some more flour for dusting, and everything you need to roll out the dough and then cutting it. And then also for the tomato sauce, you're going to need 3 tomatoes, 2 large eggs, some chicken bouillon, some salt, some garlic. I have 2 cloves here, but you can use more if you want, or you can skip it completely. And then I'm using 2 stems of green onions. So first I'm going to mix the flour to make the noodles. And what I'm going to do is I have the flour in this big bowl, and I'm just going to pour the whole cup of water in here. Okay, and then I'm mixing it with chopsticks first. You can mix it with a mixer or use your hands. So once it gets stiff, you can go ahead and just use your hand to mix it. And you really want to just mix it and squeeze it, whatever you can do to make this into a tight dough. Alright, so once the dough becomes pretty solid and then it's all together, you don't have little pieces going around it, then it's basically done, and you can form it into kind of a ball. And just let it sit in a bowl, cover it up with saran wrap, and just let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. And meanwhile, I'm going to cut up the vegetables for the tomato egg. So I'm going to cut up the vegetables now. And with the onions, you can just cut it into really tiny pieces. Alright, I'll chop these into little pieces as well. You can cut these really roughly, it doesn't have to be pretty. Alright, next I'm going to cut my tomatoes. I'm just going to cut these into triangular pieces. For my 2 eggs, I'll just break them into this bowl. I'm going to mix them. Alright, first we're just going to fry the eggs. A little bit of oil. I would say 1 teaspoon. I use very little oil because I don't like things too greasy. And once this becomes a little bit hot, you can feel the heat up here. Then you can pour in the eggs. They look like they're all cooked, so we can now turn off the stove. Now we're going to put the eggs in another clean bowl and set it aside, and then cook the tomatoes next. Alright, again we're going to put in some oil. This time about, I would say, about a tablespoon. And first we're going to put in the chopped up garlic. So once that has been frying a little bit, you're going to add the tomatoes in here. You'll have to be kind of careful because some oil might splash out. So cook the tomato a little bit until it's soft and warm. And then we're going to add the seasoning, just the bouillon and the salt. And then lastly, we're going to add the eggs in there. So I'll let this cook for about a couple of minutes, and I'm going to clean up and come back and put the seasoning in. I'm going to go ahead and add my salt. I'm adding 1 teaspoon of salt in here. And next I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of the chicken bouillon. Now, remember the eggs that we cooked earlier? We're going to add that right now. Alright, and lastly, we're going to add these green onions that we chopped up. It adds both color and flavor to this dish. So I'm going to turn off the heat now. Okay, so before we start preparing the noodles, I have about a little bit over half of water here boiling in this pot. So I'm just gonna leave it here to let it boil, and then once my noodles are ready, I can just put them in there and welcome back. So this is my mom right here. She's going to show everyone how to make the noodles. She's an expert at this. And what she's doing right now is basically just kneading the dough. Smooth, she cut these into pieces. So with the dough that we made, we're cutting it into 4 different pieces. And next, she's going to roll this out with a rolling pin, and she has some flour dusted first so that it won't stick on the board. Be cutting this into the noodle pieces, and what she did is that she dusted the inner side of the flour with some dough, with some flour, and then she folded it into 2 pieces, and now she's just going to cut the noodles across the long piece. And we're going to dust this plate right here so she can set the noodles on here. So these are really short noodles. I can show you. So like these. So they're not as long as udon noodles, but they have the same texture and same shape. Like if you're serving more than 1 person, you can take another dough and just make more noodles. And for this, if you have a big appetite, it serves at least 1 person. Alright, it sounds like the water is boiling, so we're going to go ahead and bring this to the pot and boil it. Alright, so the water is boiling, and I have my noodles prepared right here. And make sure they're not sticking together when you're throwing them in. And also for these noodles, you can't really set them aside for more than half an hour because they will stick together. So it's best that just to make as much as you're going to eat, and don't make anything more than that. So, and then make sure you stir it with any utensil that you like to use. Okay, so I'm going to let these come to a boil, and then we're going to go back in there, stir again, and then let it come to another boil, and then turn off the heat. So, to serve this, you're going to use a ladle or use any sort of strainer and put the noodle in a bowl like this. We're going to add the sauce. So here's our tomato sauce. I'll just scoop some of this in here. And there we go. And all you have to do is just mix it together. Here's my noodle with the tomato sauce. And let's try how it tastes. That is so good. I love the tomato flavor and the egg flavor. When they are mixed together, it's a perfect combination. So I hope you enjoyed this and stay tuned for future videos. Thanks!